Now, every single time that I get to ride my 82 Suzuki GS1100E, during the ride I think about the memories of the 80s. Now, the 80s were a great time to be alive, and it was one of the most exciting times in my life. I owned the GS1100E, of course, and found a lot of great rides to go on, had a lot of friends who also had the similar bike. And I'm going to tell some of the stories as we go through this video today, because to me, the GS, I've owned it since new. I've had it 41 years. It's the original Evil Twin. I have the West Cooley version and the bodywork and the original one. And there's a lot of memories of things that have gone by, and I thought I'd share them on this video. They all relate to this bike, and if you want to watch this in 4K, every device is different, but this is the way you do it on my computer. Now, I always like the styling of the classic 80s bike. There's a lot of things that define it to me. The bikes have the engine sticking right out in the open where you can see it. You can basically see it's a mechanical thing. There's no fairings, no windshield, nothing to block the wind. And today, they said rain by lunchtime. It rained all last night, so we may get rained on today, but we're going out. The open road is always calling. So step one, we always have to move some bikes around. There's always something in the way. It's uncanny how the bike you want to ride is always somehow tucked in the back. Uncanny. Now, as I go through my this was the morning routine I always go through. I always have to move some bikes. And I take a look at them while I have them both out on the driveway. Sometimes I have to move three. And I look at them and I say how lucky I am to have an 80s bike and basically a modern bike, only 3 years old. How different they are, and yet how similar they are. And what they do that's spectacular to me is they make wonderful memories that you remember for the rest of your life. Now, I remember things from the 80s when I bought this bike. I bought it at Westwood Suzuki, and they had three. This is one of the first three that Westwood had, and I liked this color better than the red, but he did have a red one. I took a test ride on it and fell in love. At the time, I had a 1000cc Suzuki that I didn't care for the styling as much, and I did the upgrade to this bike, and I never have looked back. I love the way this bike is styled. I love the paint color. I've tried to maintain it. I've tried to polish some of the parts that normally, if you don't polish them, they get a little shabby as time goes by. 41 years are now under the bridge, and what's always amazing, when I get the farm all settled up, I'm ready to ride as soon as that farm is ready. Now, as I think back to this time, and it was a really special time in my life, because I had quit racing in 1979, sold a lot of my stuff. I just kept one of the race bikes, which eventually got sold to Ray, and I restored it. And I got basically into going on these longer rides with friends. I had met a guy at Kenny Augustine's shop named Phil Danby, and he invited me to go on some of these really long rides. He had a BMW. We used to go on weekend rides up to around the Lake George area, about a 3-hour ride from here. We stayed at a friend's house in Big Indian, a town called Big Indian of all things. And we'd ride up there sometime when it was a little chilly down here. And oh my God, was it a lot colder up there. Woo. And all those weekend rides up to the Lake George area is one of the reasons this bike wound up. Right now, it's got over 78,000 miles. I've got two speedometers for it. If you add them up, it's 78,000 miles. Now, a lot of my friends will remember during this time, right at this time window right here, is when I owned the Air Coupe. I had this. We had a boat out on Greenwood Lake, and
I was pretty much a free bird. I worked the night shift at Ford, and I had all day to play like a teenage kid, and I didn't miss many days of playing, and I had a lot of toys to play with. Now, my good friend Ray will remember this. It was during this era, too, that we basically went dirt bike riding near where his house was in Ringwood. There was a place where you could go dirt bike riding. I had a bunch of dirt bikes, and Fred Anderson had a Gold Star dirt bike. And there's just, I could tell 100 stories about the fun we had with dirt bikes up in that Ringwood area and on the pipeline. Wonderful memories. Now, unfortunately for all of us, there's not many places left locally here where you're allowed to ride dirt bikes. And the 80s have moved on, but I still have a chunk of the memories, and I still have the GS. And a great thing for me is after 41 years, and I have done meticulous maintenance on this bike over the years, and to me, it still rides like a brand new bike. And I go out on a day like today, and the memories just keep coming back of all the adventures I've had on this bike, all of the trips, all of the years I've owned it. And one of the best investments I made was to convert the chain over to 530 from 630, change the sprocket ratios from 16 to 1640. And what that does, I have super overdrive on Route 80. It takes a lot less wear and tear on the motor and a lot less wear and tear on the chain. And thank you, Vlad, for getting me all those parts years ago. They have served me well. And we have a spare front rotor as a back rotor to save some weight. That was a trick our good friend Dallas, who has the exact same bike, shared with us. And there's a lot of little things. Joe Padula got me some of the steel brake lines he had in his inventory. Pokey got me the discs, the EBC discs. There's a lot of little upgrades on this bike that make it a lot better than a stock bike to me anyway. And it is very, very reliable. And that seat is so comfortable when you're on a long ride, and many times I've been on when I was younger, not right now. I'd be on basically an all-day ride or a weekend ride, and after 3 or 4 hours, that seat just gets more and more comfortable as the day goes by. Not like some of the bikes I have owned in the past. Won't mention any names. Some of them, they're like the 3-hour motorcycle, and that's really funny too when I think about it. And I'm realistic to know that the 80s are gone, and I know they're never coming back. We're never going to go back to that simpler lifestyle where you could just take the change in your pocket and go fill up the gas tank and go for a ride. Those days, I know they're gone forever and swallowed up by a cruel world. Now, maybe you did some motorcycling in the 80s. Maybe you had a GS, or maybe you just remember, or you were too young and you were waiting to get a GS or get another motorcycle of the time. But being alive in the 80s, I count that as one of the blessings of my life. In my life, it was just a golden time to be alive. And of course, the time we live in right now is a wonderful time to be a motorcyclist. Modern bikes, safety features, traction control, and having all that. But there is nothing better. I can be the first one to say there's nothing better than having both of those things. Having the old memories, having an older bike that you really do, it stirs up those memories of days gone by. And then the next day or a day later, you jump on a modern bike with all kind of safety features and pretend you're Valentino Rossi and go out with your friends and chase them around like a hound dog. I have been blessed to have the best of both worlds.
Well, it doesn't get much better than this. Some great memories of the 80s and all the adventures I had and all the places I went. And this bike, like a refrigerator, just bulletproof. Unbelievably good bike. It exceeded my every dream when I got it. And I was so glad when I got it that I started to appreciate the quality of the bikes.
And after this day's ride, my head was spinning with days back at Westwood Suzuki and days riding up to Lake George. And my God, there's a video out on my channel. I recently took a vacation up at Lake George to relive some of the memories with Karen and show us some of the hot spots. There's a video, just look on my channel, if you're on my channel, and use the keyword Lake George. Nice place to vacation, and an even better place if you still are into doing some weekend riding. It's been a great time having these memories. And thanks so much for watching.